Hello, lovelies. Natalie, the old school otaku here. And, well, I figured it was high time for another update to my bottom surgery vlog series. This time I wanted to do a little bit of Q&A. I figure I will want to do some more Q&A later on. But we already have some questions to discuss that I can answer right now, and a few quick, simple updates on certain things too. I can give you that don't necessarily require a whole full video in and of themselves. But I know it's been a few weeks since the last update, and well, it's because I attempted to record a previous update and ran into problems with my phone. Randomly being like, oh yeah, you have no more space. Right in the middle of a topic I was trying to answer, and that ran into a lot of issues. I couldn't really get to editing the video. It did not turn out well, so I had to unfortunately delete it. Thankfully, that video was supposed to be this video, so I'm just re-recording it now. But yeah, so I guess let's get started. So yeah, I am now a little over a month beyond my bottom surgery at this point. Um, and so the first question I wanted to answer is, well, just a little bit of an update of what home life is like, is as I'm recovering, as I'm moving forward. I've had my initial post-surgery visit with one of my surgeons. There's actually two surgeons involved, like I said before. There's the urologist, and then there's the plastic surgeon. So I've seen the urologist already. They took a good look at me, looked at everything, and yeah, he's very impressed with how everything was. And really, the only major update from all of that is that, well, I realized through dilation and other things that I was dealing with that I was never sent home with a prescription for narcotic painkillers. Basically, they sent me home and said, "Hey, just go buy some over-the-counter drugs. Go buy some acetaminophen." That's what they told me. Um, so, I mean, I already have that and ibuprofen sitting at home, so I've been taking that ever since. But yeah, I didn't have any of those drugs, so it's one of the questions. I was like, can I get like a small prescription of of the narcotic? Because there are certain points where I'm like, I feel like I need it, and also I was planning on moving up to the next stage of my dilator, and I was like, well, the dilator is somewhat painful depending on when and how I'm using it sometimes, and I felt it would be nice to have a bit more relief than the over-the-counter painkillers have been giving me. Um, for those types of situations. And he was like, I am so sorry you were never sent home with a prescription for this to begin with. They should have sent me home with the narcotic. Go figure. Um, so they wrote me a small prescription. I have it. I've taken it a few times since. I actually used it. Uh, I had my appointment, and then later that evening, I actually went out with the local polycule to the Spree, a local fair in the area, and I took one pill when I went out that night because I knew I'd be walking around quite a bit and I'd be moving a lot more than I had been, and I wanted to make sure that I could, I wasn't going to be majorly in pain. And that's kind of been the thing. And so what I've kind of been doing is I keep one pill in reserve that I keep in my purse around when I'm going out and doing things, and it's there just in case I really need it. And of course, I've got the rest here at home if I need it. So as I've moved up in the dilators, when I move up to the next stage of dilator, I make sure to take the pill. I took it before pelvic floor therapy as well because I knew there were going to be some things that we might be potentially doing that could be slightly more painful, such as doing more stretching out the incisions and things. A lot of that is could be potentially painful. Overall, it has not been actually. So that's been really nice in a lot of ways. I was honestly expecting going into this to be in a lot more pain than I currently am. Overall, home life has been really nice. I'm able to get up and I can move around. I really want to pick up and carry things, but I know I am still on my restriction, my weight limit restriction. It's first 6 weeks or so, they kind of don't want you carrying more than 10 pounds at all, period. And they really don't want you to do any heavy extraneous activities, heavy workouts, things like that, starting off. So it's been a little annoying because I was trying to get into weightlifting and other things as my weight loss journey has been going on, and I've not been able to do any of that over the past month. But I know that's stuff that's going to be coming eventually. So I'm looking forward to being able to get into that once everything's said and done. I am still out of work. Um, Effectively, you can expect to pretty much be told by your surgeons that you probably shouldn't be going back to work for about 6 weeks, closer to 8 weeks sometimes, depending. Considering how well I have been doing, I'm assuming that I will most likely be going back to work after the 6 weeks. In fact, my short term disability is actually set to expire at 6 weeks based off of the information that my surgeon has provided so far to the company that handles the short-term disability and all of that stuff with work. Unfortunately, there were some issues with a lot of that. They didn't fill out the information as quickly as they should have, and so I'm broke right now. I'm broke for another week at this point, which sucks. Basically, my last paycheck was considerably smaller than I was expecting it to be because it was my vacation time and my personal time and nothing else. No disability payment, no nothing. Because that information had not been filled out and sent in until about 2.5 weeks after my surgery. Um, which is a problem because it didn't make it to them in time for payroll to hit. So, yeah, that was fun. Thankfully, I do know that um, all that information is in. It's all set. I'm good to go. I'm fine. Now it's just I'm waiting for the next paycheck to happen, and that will have the catch-up payment from before as well. So thankfully, I'll have some more money soon coming up here in a week or so. But right now, it's been really, really annoying. Um, Relying on my partners to be able to make sure that we can eat. And I've got gas and things like that. Thankfully, what I did get was enough to cover rent for the month. So, I'm grateful for that at least. But yeah, so things have been better. I, moved up to the next stage of dilator. That's moving really well, um, as it were. And I'm just happy to be in my own skin, hanging out, and doing things. The flow is nowhere near as heavy as it was early on. In fact, it's to the point where I feel fairly confident walking around without needing to wear any type of pads for the most part, most of the time. There are still things that happen, from the surgery, stitches. I'm getting to the time frame now, coming up, here within the next couple of weeks, hitting that 6 week mark. That a lot of the stitches are starting to fall out naturally as they're supposed to, and things like that. And so, because of all of that, there is, some from time to time there'll be a little bit of blood, That is something that does happen, and is known and expected. There's a little bit of discharge that comes from the sutures and the incision marks and where they sewed me up at. So that is something that can happen, and you need to kind of keep those things clean too. Um, so there's a lot of that happens. I spend a bit of time trying to air myself out. Something I've learned actually early on with any surgery that I've had, it's actually best to like let it air out and not confine it too much. So I try to do that. But for the most part, I feel fairly confident walking out in just my underwear now, without much else protection wise. But if I feel like I need protection, I've got a box of uh, a box of pads, a box of those thin pads that are really absorbent and whatnot. Been wonderful, for not making me feel like I'm wearing a diaper, uh, but still, knowing, understanding that I'm well protected. And of course, I keep a couple extra in my purse in case I need it and need to change it out. And you should change those things out fairly frequently, um, because it's sanitary, to do that. And yeah, so it's been going really well actually. I'm up, I'm mobile, I'm not in a ton of pain most of the time, and yeah, it's been lovely. Admittedly, there is some pain. I can't say it's not without pain. Sometimes early in the morning, when I would first wake up, I'll be in a bit of pain. Take some pain meds. Within an hour, it goes away. If I'm moving heavily, doing a lot of walking and things, I might experience some pain. Oddly enough, a lot of the pain that I actually feel is from the suture marks, that are at the crease of the legs. So it's kind of like here, um, on this side, and then of course on the other side as well. But yeah, like where your groin and your leg meet, that part there. I've got stitching and stuff there, and that's actually the part that tends to hurt me the most out of everything, out of the whole entire time I've ever had any sort of pain, from the surgery. It's not really been the new vagina that's been hurting. It's been the sutures around my legs. And those do tend to get a lot more stretching from just standard movement and whatnot. And they do actually want you to stretch those incision marks and things out, because when your body heals, it likes to cinch and heal really quick and simple, really fast. And to get the best healing, and the best of everything, and something that I've learned through my pelvic floor therapist, you actually do need to stretch it. And so some of the things they do are certain muscle stretches and things. You actually kind of hold on, to your calf, and you just pull on the skin. Um, you don't have to pull very hard, but you just kind of pull in a bunch of different ways, and you kind of hold on one side, hold on the other side, and you just kind of stretch, stretch out and whatnot, and that's part of uh, what's expected. I do other exercises with my pelvic floor exercises, trying to twist and turn and move it around. There's also breathing exercises that I do, to help me kind of. You typically don't think about your pelvic floor muscles ever. They just kind of work, and that is true. They just kind of do. But after having this type of surgery through there, they're a little. I wouldn't say they're damaged, but there's been a lot of stress there, and trying to understand how to hold on to them actually helps hold everything up, and makes it easier for you to lift things and carry things and move things around and whatnot. And that's been what I've been working with in pelvic floor therapy, is how to um, visualize, understand, and actually pinpoint my pelvic floor muscles, and then loosen them, which is great for dilation, and of course eventual eventual sexual intercourse if I go that route. Um, because you don't want your pelvic floor muscles to be extremely tight, because it's going to make it, well, one, painful for me on the receiving end, but also probably painful for my partner as well, uh, with that. But also you want to not have it hold and be stressed all the time, because that's going to cause potential issues with possibilities for incontinence, and other such things that you could deal with, because the pelvic floor muscles help and aid with going to the bathroom, both number one and number two. Go figure. Um, so it's all just part of the thing, and that's why I highly suggest that if your doctor is not recommending that you do pelvic floor therapy and isn't going through the process of getting you involved with it, ask your doctor, ask your surgeon about it, get recommendations of who to go see, and make sure you go see a pelvic floor therapist. It's going to be very, very helpful. I've had 2 sessions with my pelvic floor therapist now, post surgery, and I've got 2 more sessions to go. Um, Maybe another after that, but based off of our conversations, it definitely seems like I'm doing well enough that I'm not needing too much more help. Something that pelvic floor therapy really helps with is if you have issues with not being able to hold your bladder and things like that. The pelvic floor therapist is able to work on a routine, different exercises and things to help you out with strengthening the muscle, understanding how it works, and helping you get to a point where you will feel confident and comfortable with your functionality. Because the last thing they want is for you to be constantly peeing all the time, not being able to hold your bladder, things like that. And the pelvic floor helps and aids with all of that. So, very important. Thankfully, I've not had too many of those problems actually, but from time to time, there's been a few issues, and most of it's dealing with, well, okay, I went to bed. I've been in bed for 10 hours. I wake up and then I lay in bed for another 2 to 3 hours. And, oh, I should probably get up and go to the bathroom. I try to get up and go to the bathroom. I've now been holding it for like, half a day. Yeah, it's different now. Uh, so there's been a couple issues like that, but that's mostly my fault. And it's me learning the feeling, and understanding how that is different now, because obviously things are different from how they were before. And I have to kind of relearn how all of that works. But that does kind of lead me into the next topic I wanted to go over, which was a question that was posted from a from a follower on Twitter, actually. And to be blunt, the question was, "How do you pee?" The simplest answer is very well, thank you very much. It's kind of funny. You'd think that after all of that work done and whatnot, you'd have to kind of relearn how to go, but it's not necessarily so much relearning how to go; it's relearning how to hold. Is one thing, but it's really more relearning how everything feels is what it is. Because I mean, did any of us really learn how to pee? You just kind of know how to do it, and you just do it from a baby. What you had to learn was how to hold it. Um, that was the whole point of potty training when I was a kid, was learning how to hold it in, so that I only went when I, one, really needed to, and two, when I had access to facilities with which to go. And oddly enough, after they removed the catheter from me in the hospital, it was not that hard. I kind of, built into this schedule of going effectively every 4 hours or so, sometimes two, most of the time four. And on average, I've been told by my urologist that 2 to 4 hours is pretty normal, actually. So there's nothing really to be worried about. And what I've had to kind of learn over most of this is just understanding what feeling I'm feeling down here. That is, the overpressure. Do I have, is my bladder too full? Do I feel like I need to go? Is there a sense of urgency? Things like that, and figuring out how that feels now versus how it felt before, because it is different. Um, and the actual act of going is different as well. To kind of use a term that somebody that I follow on Twitter had used before, she kind of described the act of going before surgery as this um, turbulence, this chaotic turbulence coming out. And honestly, I don't even really remember what going to the bathroom was like pre-surgery. I actually don't remember much of what I felt like pre-surgery. Actually, this to me now, what I feel is very normal, very um, almost like this is what I should have been, and this is what I have been all my life. Actually, this feels no different to me, oddly enough, than anything I'm really used to. It's just there obviously are differences. It's just not, to me, it just feels normal every day. Like, it's like, oh, yeah, I feel like I kind of need to go. Let me look. Oh, yeah, it's been 3.5 hours. I've been drinking a lot. All right, let's go. I get up, sit down, and it just kind of falls out. Um, there's to me, I don't feel like I'm really flexing a muscle. I mean, I am, but I don't feel like I'm flexing a muscle. It's just, okay, I sit down and it goes. And I very quickly figured out the difference between going number one and going number two. It's like, okay, I start number one, and all of a sudden, oh, I've got to go number two. Well, number two happens. Number one stops. Number two happens. Then when number two finishes, number one continues if it still needs to go. Um, Really nothing else beyond that, actually. Uh, it's pretty, I mean, at this point to me, it's bog standard. Is it actually bog standard? I don't know. And I'm not going to be able to say specifically if how I go to the bathroom now is to me or to would be to anyone else different than a cis female going, or anything like that. It's just normal to me. I have control of my bladder. I am able to hold my bladder for a fairly good amount of time, and when it's time to go, I just go, and I just sit down on the toilet and go like any other like any other person in the women's room. No different. And that's really all it is. The one thing I could say is I'm very, very happy that we finally got the bidet installed here at home. And so that's been lovely to help clean and make sure I feel clean, really, really clean after I've gone, because while I've gotten used to using those disposable wet wipes that they're flushable and whatnot, and those are really great for when I'm out and about, uh, versus the standard crappy hurts you to use toilet paper that a lot of companies buy. The bidet is just, I turn it on, it washes me out, I turn it off, I let myself drip dry a little bit, then I grab a couple tabs of toilet paper, and I dry myself off, and I'm done. It's great. It's been wonderful. Admittedly, it was definitely an interesting experience, feeling what that feels like on my vagina, because it definitely feels different. It's a new sensation to me, and I'm still kind of getting used to it, but it's nice. it really is nice. It's jarring though, but that's because we did not install the ability to have heated water jets. It's just the standard cold water jet. So that can be a little jarring, just all of a sudden cold water uh, is a thing. But honestly, I don't know how I can live without a bidet at this point. I love it so much. And I'm used to a bidet where I used to live. But we finally got one installed here. So it's been great. But yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say about it. It's just something that happens. It's a normal bodily function that all of us do, and I really don't have any issues. If I need to go, I go, and if I don't need to go, I don't go. And I can hold it. I can hold on to it. I know it's like, oh yeah, I feel like I really need to go and tighten up my pelvic floor, force hold. Works really well. Not really much issues there. So that's been great. But yeah, moving on from that, um, something else that's come up that was not in the previous script uh, written for this. Not that I'm reading from a teleprompter or anything. You can probably tell with all the ums probably through here, but I had a misconception going into all of this, um, that I was going to be barred from any sort of sexual activity for 3 months, because that's kind of what all of the documentation I was given ahead of time, all of that basically said was 3 months. And most everybody I talked to, it was at least 3 months before they were given any sort of go ahead to, you know, have fun. But I have since learned after my surgery that that's not true. At least according to my surgeon, it's not true at all. In fact, they actually highly recommend sexual activity in some regards. Let me explain. So, at my first checkup with my first post-op with my urologist, they actually blunt asked me the question: have I done any exploring down there, and have I done any masturbation? And I was truthful. Little bashful about it, but truthful. The answer was, yeah, I've done a little. Um, I've got access to her down here. So I'm, feeling myself out. Where are things? How do things feel? How do they move? Um, what types of touches, what types of tactile sensations do I like? Do I not like? What causes me pain right now? And that's a big thing because I'm healing, obviously. So I need to be gentle. I need to know how, what's going to hurt, what's not going to hurt, things like that. Um, and of course, I had an experience. I think it was night two after I came home. I decided to take a gummy, and it'd been, I think, ooh, 3 weeks or so since I had taken any, and by that point, close to a month, and I decided to go back to my normal level of what I take. And I took a hybrid, and one thing hybrids tend to do for me is they make me overall more sensitive. Like all the tactile sensations, everything's just way more sensitive. And all of a sudden, I felt like somebody was going to town down there on me. That was an experience. Played with myself a little, um, as it were, uh, during that. But for the most part, it just kind of happened, and that was a wonderful experience. What I was feeling, and it was kind of interesting. I felt certain things in the hospital too. I was kind of messing around a little bit in the hospital, and I'm just like, wow, so much sensation. And for me, that's kind of been the big thing that I've noticed, pre-surgery versus post-surgery. I would consider myself to have been very numb pre-surgery. I had an accident when I was younger, sledding, where I decided rather than using the fancy sled that my family had with brakes and ability to steer and things like that, I was going to ride on one of those cellophane like sleds that one of the neighbor kids had. Well, you had no control over that sled, no way to, keep yourself going straight. And so what ended up happening is I went and turned right around, was going down backwards. I had no way to stop myself, no way to do anything. And I ended up landing. I just went bam, back first, right into a tree. Um, and I've kind of been numb ever since. Whole body numb. I mean, I can feel I have tactile sensation and things like that, but nowhere near to the extent that other people seem to describe themselves. And that's kind of carried through to, my own sexual activity. I've been very, very numb for the most part. Very little, very little feeling. Uh, and of course, I had that lovely procedure done to me that most of us in the United States had because my parents decided that it'd be weird if I didn't look like my father. Anyway, so I've now had the surgery, and all of a sudden, I am just feeling things. Feeling things. Light breeze. Oh. Slight touch. Oh. Um, and I'm not even talking, focusing on the areas that are supposed to be overly pleasurable. I'm just stretching skin out and things like that, and I'm feeling so much, and it's different. It's wonderful. That's the best I can say. Up to this point, to continue on with the other part of the story is after talking to the doctor, and they're like, "Yeah, we actually encourage you to um, self exploration, masturbation. My pelvic floor therapist actually recommended that I pull out the vibrator and use that. Not and the one thing that they do say to not do is no penetration of any type. Period. Can't go in the front. Can't go in the back. That one they're like, no, no, no. You really need to wait those 3 months. And it makes sense with all of the work that's been done down there. You really don't want to be going to town with a partner and all of a sudden you're popping a stitch or you're opening yourself up. That's the last thing you want to have happen. Um, you want to make sure I'm fully healed and able to handle that. And while yes, dilation is penetrating, it's not quite the same. It's a gentle stress, as it were. Um, so that's one thing that has been definitely ingrained into me at this point. None of that. Um, Oral is something that is allowed, but not necessarily recommended with a partner. There are a couple of ways that you can move into that if you wish to. They recommend getting a dental dam, something like that. Mouth condom, something like that. And there's another thing that the nurse had recommended, which I think it's called Laurels, which is a relatively new product that's supposed to basically be I guess from what I've been told, it's like a condom that's a full panty basically, It covers everything, but is supposed to allow for like full access, full ability to get in there and, effectively do whatever your partner wants to do to you orally, but protects the partner from certain things because, well, they say for the most part, it's not necessarily quite so much a sanitary thing, though there is a little bit of that. I mean, everybody's mouth, you know, you got mouth bacteria and other things, and that's not necessarily best to put onto healing incisions and things like that. But the other side is that, just natural as I am healing and whatnot, there are certain discharges that come out from the stitches and things like that, and um, it's not pus and things like that. It's just natural discharges that come out that won't necessarily be quite as flavorful as they could be. And the other side is because of the stitching and other things, there is the potential for some blood to come out from time to time too. And I have definitely experienced that, and it is normal. You should not be constantly bleeding, but every once in a while you could have a little bit of blood, especially in the stage I'm at now where I'm pulling out stitching from time to time. I'll pull out a little string stitch from every here or there, and that sometimes has a little bit of blood behind it, and that's not the tastiest thing for a partner to have. Um, so that's one of the other reasons that they recommend that you use some form of protection, be that a dental dam or these Laurel things that I still need to look more into and whatnot because, well, I enjoy that. I enjoy receiving it. I enjoy giving it. And my partners are very, very similar. I am a sexual being. Go figure. So one of the main reasons why I got the type of surgery I had is so that I can experience the joys of having sex. Uh, it's just the way it is. So yeah, that is very different from what I was expecting. In fact, I'm not the only one who was thinking the exact same thing. I had a couple of friends on Twitter be like, "What are you doing?" when I tweeted out about my experience and how me and my partner had gotten me to experience well 17 times in one night, and that's when I lost count. Needless to say, it's been wonderful. Um, just the whole feeling and everything. It's been great. It's been lovely. And I cannot wait until I have the go ahead to have a little bit more fun. Because I can say, from dilating, it is mildly painful, but once you get past the pain and whatnot, you can play around a little bit and have a little bit of fun. And that's been wonderful. Okay. I think that brings me to kind of one of the last questions that was asked, and it was from wonderful question, and that is, how do I deal with the people who have been in my life that don't agree with my transition? Short answer, I don't need that kind of negativity in my life, and I am fully capable of burning bridges. The long answer is a little bit more nuanced, but really, I kind of knew from a very, very early age that something wasn't right. I was being raised male. Um, Admittedly, I had the outside parts of the one. So but it never felt right to me from a very young age. It just did not. And it got worse as puberty hit. It started feeling really, really wrong um, during that time. And of course, due to my age and where I was living at the time in rural Kentucky, um, Bible Belt, all of that type of stuff, there wasn't a lot of information about transgender back in the 90s. And what information there was and what information I could find was highly inaccurate, somewhat barbaric at times, and just downright bad. Um, did not give me good feelings for any of this. But I also realized at the time that that seemed like me. But Christian Protestant upbringing, Southern Baptist church that I was in at the time, whole family or whole town mostly being run by the Catholic Church there in town. And if you weren't Catholic, you were most likely Protestant. The gay panic of the 90s. I watched Jerry Springer, Ace Ventura. Miss Doubtfire wasn't the worst, but it also wasn't very great. Um, and what media I could find online talked about this term called autogynephilia. And it made me very, very, very I felt like I was a sexual predator early on. And with the Christian upbringing, okay, I'm a sexual deviant. All of this stuff is bad. It's wrong. It's not good to think about this. Um, and but even with all of that, I still would, when I'm alone in the house, wear women's clothing. I had a stash of clothes that I would wear, and I felt wonderful in that. Um, I was also a teenager, so at first, it was kind of like, "Ooh, I'm doing something I shouldn't do. This is kind of naughty," uh, kind of thing there. But after that feeling passed, which didn't take very long actually, it just felt right in a lot of ways. But my stash got found by my parents, and the worst punishment I was ever put through in my life was because I had women's clothing and was wearing women's clothing. Had nothing to do with anything else in the stash. It was all related to the women's clothing. Took me a year and a half to get all of my privileges back. Basically, I was given the choice between two privileges to choose from every week if I was good. And it took me about a year and a half to get all of my privileges back. My parents would give me the option of, um, you can have your TV, or you can have your Sega Genesis. Trying to give me this impossible decision. What do I choose, TV or the Sega Genesis? I chose the Sega Genesis because little did my parents understand or realize is that my Sega Genesis had a Sega CD attached to it. And it was the old style Sega Genesis, so I was able to plug speakers into it. And that allowed me to listen to music. Because they didn't give me the general option to have music, my stereo, but I could use my Genesis. My Genesis had a CD player in it, so I was able to listen to music, which was wonderful because that's how I went to bed. I went to bed listening to music. It was really horrible the first couple of weeks before I got that option. back. Trying to sleep at night was not fun, and I still can't sleep without some sort of noise in the background, um, music, whatever. But yeah, I got put through this huge punishment, and I pushed everything down. But I also, at the same time, realized that my parents and my family probably weren't going to support me um, in my endeavor if I were to ever go back to wanting to try and transition and actually transition. Not that I knew a lot of that information at the time. Um, there, I just wasn't finding it at the time. It wasn't available um, for me, at least. So I kind of started distancing myself from my family, and as soon as I graduated high school, I decided to choose a college to go to that was far away from my family. I didn't. I had a full ride scholarship to go to a college right near town. Um, that would have been great, actually, uh, but I elected to be further away from my family because further away from my family gave me more autonomy, and more autonomy meant, well, I didn't have to worry about me deciding to do certain things. Um, it took me multiple years to get into stuff again. I took me till I think it was 2008 before I started to do any cross dressing again. Um, and it was actually something frequently I did a lot, and I enjoyed that. Um, but yeah, so I started learning how to, or in understanding that, despite the term that often gets used, blood is thicker than water. Um, it's not exactly true. My family, I never thought my family had my back. So I prepared myself, and it took a while, but I prepared myself for the inevitability of my parents disowning me if I ever came out. And I fully expected that to happen when I came out. That didn't actually happen, oddly enough. Um, my parents actually did research on what it meant to be transgender and things like that, and they're really working towards it, and it's been wonderful actually that I could maintain some form of a relationship with my parents, but it was never as close. I'm even now my relationship with my parents is nowhere near as close as it was when I was younger, because a lot of that was from me pulling away and preparing myself for the inevitability of burning bridges. Uh, and so I've kind of come into that. And I realized that, for me, found family is way thicker, way stronger. Those bonds are way stronger than the familial uh, bonds are. And that's where I've found my support, is with my family, my chosen family. So when it came to anybody who's not really into my transition, my response is there's the door. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. I'm too old to care and deal with people not being okay with me living my life, because that's really all I am doing. That's really all I want to do, is just be myself and live my life. And yes, in this day and age, right now in this country, lovely old United States, um, the fact that, I'm trans is up for debate. I don't know why, but it is. And it sucks. It's not easy. It's something that I've learned, and I have learned and given myself the ability to be able to cut people out of my life and just kind of ignore them. in a lot of ways. And I mean, since my surgery, I've had a lot of hate thrown my way. My main primary Twitter account got found out by a group of TERFs um, and other whatever you want to call them. I think I've called them the Idiot Brigade a few times before, but these people found me and they're like, "Oh, you had your surgery," and so they came up with all of these terms for the surgery I had. Like they call it a rot pocket. I had a pocket of rot installed in me, and some of them think that I literally go to my local butcher and my butcher just cut it off. Um, and that's how I got this done. And others think that I actually like had rotten meat sewn into me, um, which is not what happens. Proper surgical techniques. There's nothing rotting down there at all. And even if there were issues and complications, it wouldn't be rotting. Like even if you talk about like necrosis, that could potentially develop if things were not sutured up properly and I wasn't getting blood flow and things like that. That's not rotting specifically, and I would find that out. We would know that relatively soon and quickly, and I would be able to go to the doctor, go to the hospital, and we would be able to get that corrected. Um, so I do not have a pocket of rot down here. She is very much alive. I feel her constantly. Um, it's a living part of me. Um, Definitely not rotting. And all this other stuff, there's people who sit there and they listen to the rhetoric that's being thrown around that, oh, if you're trans, you're a groomer and you're a pedophile and all this other bullshit, which is not true. And it's hilarious, the people who think this, because they're all like, you're grooming kids, you're doing all this other stuff. And almost every trans person I know on Twitter, right in your profile, one of the very first things that shows up in the profile says, no minors, no one under 18. Under 18, do not interact. And I follow that fairly strictly because my main Twitter profile, my personal main Twitter profile, is an NSFW Twitter. Those of you who do have me on Twitter should know this. um, and I say the same thing. And if I notice a minor follows me, I will soft block them. Soft block, basically, you block them and then you unblock them. Basically, forces the unfollow and all of that. And if the same person I notice follows me again, I hard block them. I just straight up block them. Once they turn 18, once they're old enough, they are okay to start following me. But up until that point, no go. I'm That's not what I'm into at all. I am mostly dating older women. If anything, they're the cradle robbers, not me. And I was well old enough before we got into these relationships anyways, so eh. People are going to form their own weird opinions. And you know what? If y'all ain't accepting me, there's the door. That's really how I handle it. There's no other way to say it, no other way to sugarcoat it. I mean, it. I chose to live my life. I chose to live as me, not because um, of some weird delusion or anything. Like, I'm not pretending to be me. I'm not pretending to be this. Um, I was pretending to be who I was before. I am not pretending now. My choice was to stop pretending. and live authentically as myself. That is the choice that I made. No other choice. This is who I always have been, and now I am freely showing it to the world. And that choice was not easy and has not been easy. Um, Before I went in for surgery, I had a call with my dad, and he, kept on saying, "Are you sure you're wanting to go through with this? Is this what you want?" And I'm like, "Yes, this is what I want. I'm very sure." I would not have gone through the painful process of hair removal that was required for my surgery if I wasn't wanting this. And of course, once surgery is all said and done, like I said, this feels fully natural and normal for me. I have taken to these changes extremely quickly, extremely fast. As soon as I had access to be able to, once they removed the wound packing and everything, and I could actually see her, had full access to her, I knew how to work her. I'm still learning the nuances of sexual activity, but that is different than all the other normal bodily functions. They function normally, and it's to me very normal, very what I it's what I've been wanting. It's what I've been dreaming, to have that part of my body match the image I have of myself in my head. Uh, and I match now, and it's wonderful. Um, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's not been easy. This whole process has been painful. Um, like I said, I've had to deal with extra bits of hate and other things thrown my way. The Right now, not having a lot of money because I'm not working has been a chore to deal with. The whole fact that I've been, uh, because I'm out of work, well, not out of work, but I'm on leave from work. I had a lot of projects that I was really, really excited to finish and move across the finish line that I've been working on for a long time. Um, that I was really, really happy to be able to move across, that were supposed to move across during this time, that my other coworkers have had to pick up and finish while I've been off. Um, I'm disappointed that I didn't get to see those across the finish line. These projects I was really excited to finish working on, I couldn't finish working on, and I've made a lot of sacrifices um, to get to this point. I've sacrificed friendships. I've sacrificed familial relationships. Me coming out and living my authentic self has effectively ended my marriage. Um, so it's not been easy. Um, but in the other regard, it's been the most delightful decision I ever made. I would not trade any of this for what I had before. Um, I would do this again. Not that I need to do it again, but I would. Knowing everything I know now after the fact, I would do this again and again and again. Because I get to be me. And that is the most wonderful gift I can give myself, is to live authentically as myself. And soon life will get back to normal. What I'm dealing with now is temporary. I'm literally expected to go back to work in 2 weeks. So, yeah. Well, I think that it about wraps us up. And hopefully, I realize I'm getting close to the 1 hour mark. I've been rambling for a bit, so I should let y'all go. Thank you for tuning in and listening to me up to this point. I appreciate each and every single one of you that have been following along on this series up to this point, and I hope you will continue to come back. Please do, if you have any further questions, anything you want clarification on, things that I can answer about the surgery, recovery, all of that, please do let me know down in the comments section below, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter, DMs, any other places that I'm available that you know me from. Feel free to let me know there, and I will try to answer those questions. If it's a big enough topic for me to make a full video, I will make a full video on that topic. If it's not, I plan to do another one of these Q&A answer sessions here probably within a couple of weeks. Again, I've got a couple more topics that I really want to dig into. Now that I am up and moving, I've actually been sleeping in my bed down in the basement. I can actually go up and downstairs. I feel confident enough to sit in my computer chair for long periods of time, so I actually will be able to do some editing. And like I said, one of the next videos I want to release is a video about dilation, and that's going to require some editing because I want to be as informational as I can be, but unfortunately, because of YouTube, I can't be as graphic as I could. I can't actually specifically show you the act of dilation on myself. If you want that, there's a couple other services you could sign up for that could potentially have that in the future. But for now, on this platform, I need to keep things at a certain level. Not that I'm worried about demonetization. It's not like I'm making any money on my channel right now as it is. But I want to make sure that it doesn't get stricken for content. There's that side of it too. Either way, though, I do want to give more information about that, and so that's one of the next videos that I definitely want to release. There's probably some more information about what it's like to go into my next follow-ups. I do have a follow-up coming up next week with my plastic surgeon, so I'm looking forward to that. Followed by continuing with pelvic floor therapy, and I really want to get more into a lot of the details with pelvic floor therapy and whatnot. So that's also a session I want to talk about. And of course, once I get back to work, what is it like getting back into the swing of work and things like that? So there's a lot of content that I think I can bring forward still. And of course, like I said, any other questions, any other concerns, let me know. And I will hopefully answer them soon. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. And I hope to see you all next time. I am Natalie, the Old School Otaku, signing off.